What I'm about to share with you is exciting and rather shocking in some ways, but more importantly, it's promising because it could set the stage for other states to follow. We'll talk about what Missouri is now doing for the first time with gold and silver as we explore. Whenever I see stories like this, it gets me very excited and happy because Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution remains strong. That's for sure, and it's uncontested. I'll get into that in a moment. But first, I want to remind you of channel sponsor Summit Metals. They have these cool wallets, and if you ever want to find a really good deal, they got these cool little 1 gram Scottsdale bars that you can fill up one of these wallets with. So check them out at summitmetals.com. Now, what's going on in Missouri is quite very fascinating. It's very exciting and is a continuation of what I refer to as the revolution for sound money. That revolution is something that started a few years ago, and I've been documenting almost all the cases since they started. And really, 2011 was kind of sort of the beginning, and Utah has kind of led the way there. But other states have followed, especially in recent years with inflation going up so high. But just recently, a few days ago, Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe signed the Constitutional Money Act into law. This new law officially recognizes gold and silver as legal tender, exempts both from state capital gains taxation, and that's a good thing for sure. But here is the thing that's never been done before, at least that I know of. It bars state enforcement of any federal confiscation scheme. That's huge, folks. Now, it's highly unlikely that the federal government is going to confiscate your gold and silver. The closest thing that we came to it was not really technically a confiscation, but it was the next best thing to it because it had penalties assigned to it, and that's Executive Order 6104, which barred anybody from owning more than 5 of these, or $100 worth of gold coins in circulation at the time, aside from collectible pieces, with under a penalty, like a $10,000 penalty. And of course, obviously, there could be, enforcing that law may be very difficult to do. And I don't know how many people were actually, convicted of such a thing at the time, but it was an executive order. There was no actual law that put into place, and it stayed in effect until 1974, the end of 1974. But this measure allows gold and silver to be used in payment of debts, including public obligations, in physical or electronic form. Businesses are permitted to compensate employees in the dollar equivalent of specie if they choose. The Department of Revenue is required to establish rules for accepting gold and silver for any tax, fee, or other state payment. That's great news. Senator Mike Moon successfully had the Constitutional Money Act language amended to House Bill 754 on the 1st of May. The full bill cleared the Senate by a 20-11 vote. That's an overwhelming vote there. On May the 5th, the House approved the amended bill by a 118-10 vote. That's an even more overwhelming vote. With Governor Kehoe's signature, the act will go into effect very soon, like August 28th. That's pretty amazing how quickly they can enact it here. The enactment of the measure makes Missouri the 8th state to recognize gold and silver as legal tender, as they always should have been doing all along. Wyoming, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Idaho, and Alabama have since joined after Utah did in 2011. Florida and Texas have taken partial steps to recognize gold and silver as legal tender, and Florida, I think, pretty much has, as we reported on that here as well. So the enactment of the Missouri Constitutional Money Act allows residents to use gold or silver in physical or electronic form as money rather than as mere investment vehicles. The state will be required to accept gold and silver in electronic form for the payment of public debts. Private debts can be settled with gold and silver or physical electronic form at the party's discretion. So that really does make gold and silver legal tender if they so elect to do so. And I think we might see more and more companies start to do that. So we'll see how this plays out. I still think it'll take a while, but I think we're going to see it happen, especially if inflation really kicks up again. The director of the Department of Revenue will be tasked with promulgating rules on the methods and acceptance of specie legal tender as payment for any debt, tax, fee, or obligation owed. Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution for the United States expressly prohibits states from making anything but gold and silver coin a tender of payment for debts. Virtually all debts in Missouri are either paid with Federal Reserve notes, which are otherwise known as dollars, which are losing value every single year by at least 2%, if not more. And that is what's happening. And so they're authorized as legal tender by Congress or with coins issued by the U.S. Treasury, very few of which have gold or silver in them. In fact, the only ones that do don't circulate anymore. In fact, the closest thing we can have that may circulate are 40% half dollars. And that's pretty much it. You may find one of those in change. Very, very rarely will you find any change from 1964 or earlier. And if you do, hold on to it. No question about that. And the Federal Reserve destroys this constitutional monetary system by creating a monetary monopoly based on its fiat paper currency. Without the backing of gold or silver, the central bank can easily create money out of thin air, and that's exactly what they're doing, even to this very day. Passage of the Constitutional Money Act represents a big first step against the fiat-based Federal Reserve System by creating a foundation to pull the rug out from under it in the state and local levels. In essence, it sets the stage for the people themselves to undermine the Federal Reserve monopoly by introducing competition into the monetary system. The next step will be for the people to take advantage of the status of gold and silver as money by using both as such instead of the Federal Reserve notes. That's going to be a big task, by the way, folks. It's going to be a huge task, and let me tell you why. Because as much as been talked about the gold back, and here is one gold back, and here is a half gold back, these are the closest things to paper money for convenience that could ever have been conceived. And it really started in Utah back in 2019. But in reality, it's a very slow adoption rate to actually use these as money. Why? Because of the high premiums. A lot of people, even to this day, don't understand the premiums and using them as money. But the magic in the use of the goldback is the exchange rate, which most businesses will honor that exchange rate, and that actually has doubled in recent years. So as long as they honor that exchange rate, these are actually a good way in physical gold form to use for payment. But nonetheless, silver and gold coins is another area that really is a challenge for some, because carrying out around even a 1 ounce coin is pretty bulky. Silver or a 1 ounce coin and gold. And by the way, you could buy a whole lot with a 1 ounce gold coin. Fractional one pieces, even the little 1 gram pieces, unless you have in a wallet like this, it's impractical to carry. But this is a really practical way to do it. This is a business card size, and you can just take that with you, or you can have the gold backs here. So adoption is going to be a big challenge. I think it would require probably, to some extent, a media campaign, maybe even by the state or by institutions, nonprofits, or even some agencies, some lobby groups to get the word out. But the effect has been most dramatic in Utah with since 2011, where the Specie Legal Tender Act opened the door for the development of a robust gold and silver economy in the state. With some legal hurdles cleared away by the act, we have seen these goldbacks start to be used there. But still, even in Utah, it's very slow in adapting compared to other things. But it is growing, but it's not growing at the pace that many people think it should, hence why there's been so much, I guess, criticism of the goldback. But nonetheless, there are other ways to pay with silver, and I've documented how that can happen here on this channel, how silver can be used, especially like the mercury dimes. You know, you could take some mercury dimes down and utilize that for payment if a place will see it. Recognizability of silver products is key. If you take just a regular 1 ounce round into a shop or a place of business, it may be marked silver on it, but they may not feel comfortable holding it or exchanging with it. It's just a matter of if they're comfortable using it. There's so many different types of silver out there, just in bullion form, in the forms of rounds, coins, and what have you. And some may not elect to carry a certain type or to exchange with a certain type. But that's another thing. That's a hurdle. That's a big hurdle that only we can figure out as businesses and as individuals as to what's going to be the most liquid and the type to be able to use. And so that is something that's fascinating to see. Removing taxes is usually the first step that these states take. And we've seen that happen in a lot of states. We've also seen some states just very recently where some of those bills have sunsetted, which means a state that the taxes are reenacted yet again. So that's a big problem too. So we need to get taxes removed from gold and silver in every single state in the union. So there you have it. Fascinating, great news indeed to see this happen. Let me know what your thoughts are. This channel aims to bring you the latest news in the world of precious metals. So I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel or pressing the notification bell next time a video makes its way across your device. And press that thumbs up button down below. Appreciate that. It helps engagement. So with that, I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.